I've created a new reading challenge for all of my romantasy lovers out there. It is called the Every Romantasy Challenge, and it's definitely inspired by the Every Occult Challenge created by James Turner, who is a sim streamer. There are 3 parts to this challenge. I will be going over how the challenge works, and then I'll be going over my TBR and some recommendations for you as well. Essentially, for this challenge, you have to read 8 books that each have a different romantasy trope in them. It is a reading challenge. There is no exact time frame to complete this. It is open to whatever works best for you and challenges your reading. I'll be giving myself 3 months to complete this challenge. I will be completing it in June, July, and August, with a vlog coming every single month for my channel where I'm working on my goal to complete it. I've created a graphic for it and a spreadsheet for it, which I will link down below for you to have access to. Please remember on both of these things to make yourself a copy and not ruin the master copy. I always have to put a blank statement out here that reading is supposed to be fun, and if there's something on this challenge that is really not working for you, stretch it, change it, make it work for yourself. Reading is fun, it's not that deep. But let's get right into how this challenge works. There are 3 things you need to complete in order to complete the challenge, and then there are some bonus things that you can complete if you're just wanting more fun. The first thing you need to do, and like the main thing you need to do, is read 1 book for every trope. There are 8 tropes on this list. Each book that you read does have to be different. These are no repeats. You have to read 8 books for this. We have reluctant allies, meaning they get together and they have to work together even if they don't want to. Fated mates, meaning they're fated to be together. 2+ love interests. Now, this could be why choose, or it could be a love triangle. I think you just have to see 2 love interests on paper. Even if it's not a believable love triangle, if you see them like kiss a different person, count it. Arranged marriage, meaning they're forced to marry each other. They don't choose to marry each other, is the way I'm interpreting it. A bodyguard romance. He or her is the other person's bodyguard. Enemies to lovers. Pretty self-explanatory. They're enemies, and then they're lovers. Forbidden love. You could also think of this as like star-crossed lovers. They're just not supposed to fall in love for some reason. A lot of times it's because of politics. And then we have friends to lovers. I will say a lot of friends to lovers I think go to like strangers to friends to lovers, but as long as there's that friend portion at one point, count it. And that's easy. That's all you have to do for part 1. Except there's part 2. Part 2 is called unlocking tropes. All of your 8 tropes, all the things we just went over, have to also match one of these. And you can only cross these things off once. You have to read a book that is available on Kindle Unlimited. I understand that Kindle Unlimited is not everywhere, so I'm stating that it's available on Kindle Unlimited. If you don't read the book actually on KU, that's fine. But KU is a pretty big part of indie fantasy romance authors' journeys, and so I wanted to include this as a prompt. However, if you're in a country that doesn't have KU or you don't pay for KU, just find a book that people talk about being on KU and read that. You have to read at least 1 sequel. You have to read at least 1 new author to you. You have to use a spinner wheel to pick a book. You have to read a book you already owned. You have to read an audiobook, a book a friend recommended, and a social media recommendation. Now for the unlocking tropes, it's fine if you read multiple books on KU or multiple audiobooks, but you can only cross audiobook off once. So let's say you read Fated Mates and Reluctant Allies both on audiobook. Well, Fated Mates could be crossed off for audiobook, but Reluctant Allies would also have to be like a book you already owned or a friend recommends. So you can only cross one of these things off the list once, and you have to do all 8 of them. So 1 and 2 go together. The books you're reading for number 1, you're also reading for number 2. And then we get to number 3, which is honestly my favorite part of this challenge, and it's the microtropes. You have to cross off all the microtropes off this list, but you can do them however. You can read different books for these than those 8 books, or you can cross them off as they show up in those 8 books. My thought was they're just going to show up and you're going to be crossing them off as you go, but you might have to search out 1 or 2. But if you want to make this challenge extra hard, you could technically read another 10 books. And for this section, you can read multiple microtropes per book. The microtropes are up to a little bit of interpretation, but for these we have on the run. Essentially the couple is on the run for some reason. Almost kisses. Think like an interrupted moments, like they're about to kiss. The like moment is like tensioning and then someone like opens the door and they're like, oh crap, never mind. Why were we so close together? A bath scene. I just personally love a good bath scene, so I had to add it in. It's like one of my favorite little microtropes. Lost memory. You're thinking amnesia, can't remember who they are, something like that. Long lost heir. I feel like this is very common. He falls first. Self-explanatory, I think. He falls in love first. One bed or horse. I kind of mixed these two together because they're very similar. If you wanted to make it extra hard, you could do both of them, but essentially you're thinking they have to share a bed or they have to share a horse together because there's only one horse or one bed. Knife to the throat. This is when like one of the characters has a knife to the throat of the other character. These microtropes are really like on the nose. Bad dreams. In my interpretation, this is a nightmare scene where like one of them is having a nightmare and the other one like wakes them up, often followed by the knife to the throat scene because they were just woken up from like a dangerous dream, or the one love interest crawls into bed to like keep the dreams at bay. But it's definitely up to interpretations of what you would think a bad dream sequence is. And then we have the beloved "who did this to you" line. Literally, this is a line. If you have the words "who did this to you," that's this microtrope. So yeah, those you have to find in your books, but you can find them in any book. And if you complete that, you've completed the challenge. However, I had to add some bonus challenges. So we have a bonus challenge section that has different creatures or beings that you can find in your books. Like the microtropes, these can be new books. These can be the 8 trope books that you already read. You can have more than one of them per book. And these do not have to be done to say that you completed the challenge. They're just like fun and extra. You can also complete as many of these or as little of these as possible, where the other 3 steps, 1, 2, and 3, all of those have to be done. But the bonus challenges, it's just like whatever you want to do. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please tag me in any YouTube videos, any TikToks, on Instagram, anything. I would love to see if people are participating in this. I'm so excited for me to complete this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And if this goes well, my plan is to make more in the future. Specifically, I'm thinking spooky season. There'd be fun to have a spooky season one and maybe an indie fantasy one as well. Let's get into my TBR. And as we do my TBR, I'm going to do it our fantasy bingo style, where I give you a recommendation as well for every single thing. So the first thing I need to do is read a Reluctant Allies book. I am picking Feybound for this. I don't really know a lot about this book, but I asked some people who read it and they said I could count it for this trope probably. So I'm going to shove it in there because I want to read it. I will most likely count this one for my social media rec or a new to me author because I feel like those are like the main ones that count for me. My recommendation from me to you is Heavenly Bodies by Amani Aru. She escapes her kingdom and goes to a rival nation kingdom, and they reluctantly work together to take down the fallen star who has taken over her nation. I don't want to tell you any microtropes because sometimes I think they're a spoiler, so you're just getting tropes from me today. Can't have a fantasy romance video without recommending Serpent in the Wings of Night, so this would also work for this square. Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Schuer is also another great one for this prompt. Forced to work together to take down the Shadow Race. Fear the Flames also works for this square. And A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark is really fun and would work for this square, and I recommend the audiobooks for this. And for Fated Mates, I'm unsure what I'm putting, really. I'm really not sure on this one. I'm thinking maybe Spark of the Everflames continuation. I have read this first book, but there's 2, 3, and 4 that I need to read, so I think one of them could work as well. It has not been confirmed that they're Fated Mates in this, but I think that they are, so I think this one would work. Also, maybe the sequel to Heavenly Body is called The Fallen Stars, so I might read a sequel to one of these, which also would work for a sequel knockoff. And a recommendation from me, The Crown of Oaths and Curses. This is literally a Fated Mates story. Like, it's about 2 characters who are enemies and they are fated to be together, and they have to learn to love each other because they're fated to be together, and if you don't follow the fates, bad things happen. What Lies Beyond the Veil is also one I enjoyed, and Air Awakens I don't think actually calls them mates, but I think it's kind of the same concept within this series, so I would count this one. Also, pretty much any SJM probably has fated mates in it. Then we have 2+ love interests, and I think I'm going to try a Why Choose. I've not really tried a Why Choose in a long time. I've read like Den of Vipers. I think I'm gonna go with the Broken Bond series by Jay Bree. I'm going to read book 1 for this. I'm really scared of this, but I'm also really excited. I'm excited to get out of my comfort zone. So this is the only one I have slotted in for this slot. For a recommendation, the Lady of Darkness series. In this first book, there are definitely 2 love interests we see on paper, as well as A Curse of Saints has a love triangle situation as well. Next up is Arranged Marriage, and I'm going to read A Dance with the Fae Prince for this. This is from the Married to Magic series. I think that you could slot anything from this series into this square. The whole concept of them is that the main character is put through a marriage to the other character, so it's an arranged marriage. So I think the recommendation from me is A Duel with the Vampire Lord. I did like that one, as well as, of course, My Ride or Die, The Bridge Kingdom. That's an arranged marriage. I think King of Battle and Blood would also fit for this square, as she accepts the marriage herself, but she's kind of forced into it. And Empire Sand by Tasha Suri, which is a book that I didn't really enjoy, but it definitely fits this square as well. And if you have different reading tastes than me, you could really like like this one. Next up, I put Bodyguard Romance on, and I'm picking up The Claw and the Crown by Sarah M. Craddock. I'm really excited about this one. I've heard that it's fun. I've heard really good things about Sarah M. Craddock's writing. I've heard that she's really easy to just like get really invested in the characters, and it's really bingeable, so I'm really, really excited to read this one. Bodyguard was harder than I thought it would be. My recommendations are the most basic recommendations to ever exist. I would suggest From Blood and Ash because that first book is one of the most iconic bodyguard romances to ever exist, and I'm still obsessed with that first book in that series. And then also Empire of Dragons has 2 romances in it, and one of them is a bodyguard. But that one definitely leans more YA than romantasy. Next up, we have Enemies to Lovers, which is a really easy prompt to fulfill in my opinion if you read my kind of taste. And I'm putting The Veiled Kingdom on here. I have a problem where I could read this before I start my vlogs for this, which means I will replace it because I'm really excited about this book. My recs to you: Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent. This is definitely Enemies to Lovers. She's Sent to Kill Him. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Not that anyone needs a rec for this, but it does fit this prompt. And Flame and Sparrow by S.M. Gaither. I really enjoyed this one, and she's trying to kill him and joins his like court in order to get close to him, to kill him and take him down. And next up is Forbidden Love, and I'm putting the next book in the Blood Mercy series that I have to read, so I have to read Blood Sanctuary for this because she is a human and he is a vampire, and their species are not supposed to like mingle. People say this is Enemies to Lovers, but I don't think it is at all. They're only enemies because their species aren't supposed to mingle together and their species hate each other. But these two characters are never enemies. They're more like they're told not to be together. It's definitely a bit of a forbidden love, and I'm excited about it. So obviously a recommendation from me is this series. The first book, Blood Mercy, works brilliantly for the spot. Heavenly Bodies just fits so many little tropes in my opinion, and you will hit so many micro tropes with this book, but this also fits for Forbidden Love, but I can't say more than that. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker also fits for Forbidden Love, and A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen fits the square as well. And lastly, we have Friends to Lovers, which was probably my hardest square to fill. I'm not a Friends to Lovers kind of person, but I know that some people really, really love this trope, so I wanted to include it in the challenge. And it pushes me outside of my comfort zone. I think I'm gonna go with Powerful by Lauren Roberts, which is the like novella to the Powerless series. I believe this is like reluctant allies to Friends to Lovers, and that counts enough for me. We're following a character that we meet in Powerless and learning her little side romance. But I also have Radiance by Grace Draven if I want it. I'm just kind of scared that I'm not gonna love that one. Again, I would recommend Blood Mercy for the square. They're definitely Friends to Lovers. I understand why it's called Enemies to Lovers, but it also fits Friends to Lovers, which is just weird. Daughter of No Worlds also fits Friends to Lovers by Carissa Broadbent. And again, Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri would fit this as well. And for the rest of this challenge, I'm just going to be figuring it out as I go. As I said, I'm gonna do 3 vlogs for this. We'll see if I have to read extra things in this. My plan is to also attempt the bonus challenges, which I believe means I already need to read some extra books because Pirates and Vikings, and I don't think any of the books on my list have pirates or Vikings in them. So I think I might have to read The Ever King for pirates and Road of Bones for Vikings. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to see me like struggle at times, or like the last episode where I'm like, I need to find all these micro tropes. How am I gonna do it? Please tag me if you end up participating in this challenge. There will be links in the description box to the spreadsheet for you, as well as the Canva graphic. Let me know if you'll be trying this challenge down below, and if you need some fantasy romance recommendations, I have a recommendation video and a vlog on the screen for you to check out. And leave me a pink heart emoji if you just want to say you were here.